This is terrible news for Premier League fans unless you support Manchester City. I'm not going to lie, Pep Guardiola signing an extension at Manchester City is terrible news for us Arsenal fans and for football fans in general. Let's have it right. Pep Guardiola has turned this league into a farmers league. There's been a couple of challenges. Hopefully, where Arsenal's concerned, at the third time of asking, we pick Pep Guardiola to a Premier League trophy. But yeah, if he stays at Manchester City, I don't know where we go from here, people. And it does make me nervous. I know you shouldn't panic and things like that, but I think the difference with now where Arsenal are at and where Manchester City at, for me, is Pep Guardiola. Take nothing away from Manchester City, because Pep Guardiola, since he signed for City, has just been allowed to focus on management. What they've done off the field in terms of the structure, the recruitment, and all of those other components, absolutely superb. But I think Pep's the difference. And I think if Pep leaves, and when Pep leaves Manchester City, they'll still be up there. They'll still be the big dogs. But Pep Guardiola is a generational coach, and him and Manchester City are a match made in heaven. It's basically essentially Barca V2. You look at, how they've picked a lot of people from Barcelona and put them in certain positions. Let's remember when Manchester City were initially on this kind of upwards trajectory, they just bought Arsenal's best players, so we can kind of claim some sort of help in that regard. But if I share my screen with you guys, people, now, as we know, Manchester City are fighting court cases and they've got the 115 charges and all of that kind of jazz. But apparently Pep Guardiola considering 1 year Manchester City extension after England make contact. I'd love him for the England job for what it's worth. The Spaniard has not ruled out talking to the Football Association, but remained tight-lipped about the role he wants when he leaves Manchester City. Now, he's been linked with the Spanish, Brazilian, and now English jobs for a while now. You'd imagine that's the next step for Pep Guardiola. Obviously, you have to admire his how would I say, his tenacity and his stamina and motivation to do what he's done and do it year after year. We'll be here all day wheeling off all of the statistics. Now, for me, when I look at that, the first thing I think of, maybe he's getting cold feet. Maybe the Manchester City executives think Pep might reconsider his position. It has been widely known to us football fans that this might be his last season. Potentially, they don't have a replacement lined up for Pep Guardiola. I'd imagine they do. I'd imagine they wanted Mikel Arteta and Patrick Vieira once upon a time, and I'm pretty sure Pep Guardiola, maybe not taking a driving seat in who will be his successor, but obviously will have a massive say or some sort of input. Now, I feel sorry for whoever walks in after Pep Guardiola. They might be a great match for City, but you in life, in my opinion, you have to avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. And then I know it's not the same, but you look at the first manager that steps in after Arsene Wenger, the first one that stepped in after Sir Alex Ferguson, the one that steps in after Pep Guardiola, so on and so forth. People, you're gonna the club is still gonna somewhat be shaped in Pep Guardiola's image, and that new manager is gonna have to somewhat tweak that a bit, really and truly. Even Ancelotti, nobody really talks about it, but he stepped in after Jurgen Klopp. But for what it's worth, Pep Guardiola is considering renewing his contract at Manchester City for another 12 months, having also been sounded out to become the next England manager. Guardiola has received approaches from 3 national teams in recent months, including from the Football Association, with his current deal at Manchester City due to run out at the end of the season. Understandably, the FA and other countries want to ascertain his intentions. Guardiola is understood to be interested in one day coaching a national team. That money will not be an important factor in his decision. The 53-year-old accepts that he or any national coach would not receive the same level of salary as is commanded at a top European club. He would take the job, whatever it is, people, which naturally that would be great. Pep Guardiola allegedly hasn't ruled out the FA, but neither will be held to a deadline as he considers his future. It said Guardiola could decide next week, next month, or next year on his course of action. So remaining quite tight-lipped. It also remains entirely possible that he'll leave Manchester City when his contract ends and take another sabbatical, as he did when he quit Barcelona in 2012 and moved to New York. And when you read his book and you see he spent time with chess players and all those kind of things, it's quite interesting. However, sources have tentatively suggested that the most likely scenario at present is that he signs another deal at Man City, albeit for just 1 more year. City would like him to sign for longer, but would be delighted if he renews. That would take Guardiola up to 10 years, a complete decade at City, having joined in 2016. He likes the idea of completing that period of time at the club. I mean, 10 years in any job is a long time. And, 10 years, when he looks back, provided he stays at that point, I mean, what can you say? You've seen treble winners, 100 points, everything. Yes, Klopp pipped him to a Premier League title, but Pep won Klopp won a battle, Pep won the war. Mikel Arteta has obviously, flirted with the Premier League, not got one over the line. Pep must be bored because it's, you look at Maresca at Chelsea, you look at Mikel Arteta, it just seems like a bunch of his proteges are now challenging him. If this was a Football Manager save, he needs to start a new one. We all know the last contract extension Guardiola agreed was in November of 2022, which obviously takes him to 2025. But if he is to stay at City, is expected to be for a shorter term deal, people. It'd be amazing, it'd be amazing if Pep leaves. It'd be amazing if Pep Guardiola obviously was to be the England gaffer. We all know, his long-term friend, the director of football at City is leaving as well. So that might be something. Such is how Manchester City move. They've already found the replacement, people. And as you know, Thomas Tuchel's also been thrown into the realm where England's concerned. Postecoglou, Eddie Howe, and Graham Potter have also been thrown into the realm. So what do you lot make of that? For me, it'd be terrible news as a selfish Arsenal fan if Pep Guardiola doesn't leave. From a football point of view, it'd be nice to see him complete a decade at Manchester City, and he's changed their fortunes. Obviously, you've seen Mancini, you've seen Pellegrini, and many other managers recently. They've achieved some success at City, but he's taken it to another level. The man's won a treble, won the Premier League multiple times, more times than we can count. Obviously, a Champions League winner, brought some great players, improved some great players. Manchester City are arguably the best team in European football, give or take, with Real Madrid at this moment in time. And I'm sure many Manchester City fans, back in the days of Richard Dunn and Danny Mills, probably couldn't see them ever being the top dons in the Premier League and in world football. So it'd be bad news for football fans. It'd be great news for Manchester City fans, I guess. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Do you think Pep Guardiola will stay? I am leaning towards him probably staying now, although fingers, toes, everything crossed, the man leaves and the Premier League, where aspiring to win the Premier League title, becomes open season, because it is a bit boring now. Admittedly, I don't know no Manchester City fans, so I would rather Manchester City win the Premier League if it isn't Arsenal. Definitely goes without saying for Spurs. Definitely don't want Manchester United fans to do anything, or Liverpool. I actually know them. I don't know any Manchester City fans without sounding disingenuous. So yeah, man, I definitely don't want it to go back to the days of Man United bullying this league. If it's not Arsenal, really and truly, I don't care. But that's enough of my rambling. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts. Peace.
Always that active and defending.
I think it's like